Okay, welcome back to the Are You Strong show. I have an awesome guest here today, and I'm going to rip out some of her accolades before I actually say her name and introduce you to everybody. But former Rutgers soccer player, right? Co-captain of the team, two-time All Big Ten, player, All Region third team. And what I always love to say about the college athletes that I have on my show is academic All Big Ten because the stigma of so many athletes, they don't really go to class. Here's another all academic Big Ten, which is huge. Big Ten Sportsmanship of the Year award, all Big Ten freshman team, drafted by the Sky Blue Football Club, which is now the New York Gotham Football Club, I think, right?
Mhm.
As the 29th overall pick, hired as a director of player development at University of Maryland women's soccer team, and currently assistant coach at Temple University's women's soccer team. Welcome to the show, Kenie Wright.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm excited to be here.
I am jacked up to have you on, another Rutgers athlete on the show. And I think you're like the 16th or 17th Rutgers. And how I met you was from another Rutgers athlete, Carmen
Yep.
Sclafani, Carmen.
Yep.
And I want the audience to know, the reason why you're here, right, is
Mhm.
obviously your athletic background and everything you've done. But Carmen, for those who don't know, he played baseball at Rutgers. And I forget what year he said, but it was your senior year at an event you spoke. And
Yep.
he said the message you conveyed to the athletes in the room, he says he'll never forget it.
Yep.
And I'm like, who is it? And he's like,
Yeah.
it's Kenie. And I'm like, give me your number. I want to meet her. I want to have her on the show. And boom, here you are.
Yeah. No, appreciate Carmen, speaking so highly of me. That feels like forever ago. And when I made that speech at this Fearless Girls event for Rutgers, and the event was awesome. It was just basically empowering female athletes, not and just I just spoke from my heart. Like
Yeah.
truthfully, I just spoke about my journey, and that's why I'm excited to share with you guys today.
Yeah, and you must have impacted so many people because he couldn't say enough good things about you when he
Yeah, I
was so
appreciate
you
that.
should listen. I don't know if I think he was talking about it on the show when we were recording. It might have been before or after or both.
Right.
But
Right.
man, he thought you were awesome, which is
Yeah, I
great.
appreciate that.
So do me a favor, tell the audience a little bit about yourself, and then I have a whole slew of questions here to ask you, and then we'll kind of roll from there.
Yeah, I grew up in New Jersey in Mount Laurel, and that's South Jersey. Um, Grew up just loving sports from the get-go. My parents were athletes. My brother is an athlete. My sister's an athlete. So all we love to do is play sports. So I started playing soccer at the age of 5, and just fell in love with it from the start. I, told my parents, this is what I want to do. I told them I want to play pro soccer. I think I was 8 years old when I said that. And I know so many kids, when you're in class and it's like, what do you want to be? And it's like, I want to be in the NFL. And everyone's like,
Yeah,
yeah, okay. But
right.
like, I was serious about it. Played for PDA, which is Players Development Academy, which is a big club in New Jersey. And then I, got recruited to play at Rutgers. Awesome 4-year experience there. Loved playing for my home state. And then I got drafted to play professional soccer for 3 years. For New Jersey, New York, Gotham was previously Sky Blue at the time. Tore my ACL, which I feel like unfortunately you hear a lot of athletes do that. And then decided to get into coaching. Had an unbelievable opportunity to go, down to the University of Maryland to be the director of player development and get my, foot into that realm of coaching, and then eventually came home to coach at Temple, and now I'm here, and I feel like I'm just starting my career. I feel like playing was, I don't really want to say career because I loved it and it just was an activity for me, but yeah, I'm in my 3rd year of coaching and really excited to just keep growing, learning, and be the best coach I can possibly be, and use what I learned as a player to now how I coach my players.
I mean, you're in the infancy stages of your career. You have
Yeah.
40 years ahead of you.
Yeah,
You got a long way to
exactly.
go, a long way to go.
Exactly.
So let's go backwards in time a little bit. You mentioned
Yeah.
before, 8 years old, little girl. Hey, dad,
Yeah.
mom, I'm going to play professional soccer.
Mhm.
Well, that's when we're little kids and we're dreaming, right?
Mhm.
When
Mhm.
did you realize, hey, you know what? I have the skills to really play in college, but not just at like a small D3 school, at one of the biggest programs in the country.
Yeah. I I seriously think it was 8 years old when club soccer started, and for me, it wasn't just a dream of, like, you know, maybe, like, I was so determined at such a young age, probably unlike most kids my age, I would get home off the bus and I would go outside and train on my own, and then I would go to training later, and all I could think about was soccer. People might have called me crazy back then, but I really, really wanted it from a very young age, and I put my mind to it, and I was okay with not, going to all the birthday parties and, missing a bunch of things because I love soccer so much, and I knew I wanted to play college soccer. At the time, UNC was like the big program, so I had
Yep.
like a UNC like T-shirts and hats and this and that, and, obviously, as I got older into more of the recruiting process, I realized there was other schools besides UNC, which, eventually took me to Rutgers, but, so grateful for my experience at Rutgers, and it I was just happy that, eventually everything came into place, but as we'll talk about, you know, my career, it wasn't always just a straight shot forward. It was
Right.
bumps in the road per usual, right? Like not making teams and getting cut from teams and not being told I'm not good enough and I'll never make it at the college level. So really just believing in myself and that was really where it stemmed from.
Cool. So you mentioned your mom and your dad,
Yeah.
right? So talk about their influence on you. 8 years old, 9, 10, young girl. Were they like, yeah, let's rock and roll. You're gonna make it. You're gonna do it. Or are they okay? Okay, we'll just take it one step at a time and let's see what happens. How did that go?
I think your parents are always your biggest
Fan.
cheerleaders and your biggest
Yep.
supporters. Yeah, 100%. I think my mom was just like, "Yeah, like, of course." And I think my dad was more so like, "I think she's the best soccer player I've ever seen." You know what I mean? Like, he truly believed that, and if you ask him that today, he will still say, like, "You're the best soccer player I've ever seen in my life." But I think they still were like, okay, well, you have to work for it. It's not going to come
Yeah.
easy. Them being athletes, they knew that. But I think what, you know, my career came to, I think they dreamed of it for me, but I don't know if they knew that like it would get to what it eventually got to of like being a professional athlete, being that 1%.
Now, did your parents play sports too growing up?
Yeah, my mom was a gymnast and my dad was a wrestler, and they both went Division 1 to Illinois State, so that's where they met.
Wow.
So obviously, very different sport than soccer, but both very disciplined sports
I
nonetheless.
was
So
just gonna say very
yep,
disciplined sports.
very disciplined. I think that's where I get my discipline manner from. Of like they they were in the gym hours on end. So I think
Yeah.
they understood the grind that came with being an athlete.
Right. And I'm gonna guess, knowing that gymnasts are very concerned about their weight,
Mhm.
right? And wrestlers, same thing. So they
Mhm.
must have been able to compare. No, did they meet in school?
Yep, they met in school. They met in the gym actually.
All right. So they
Yep.
probably had the same issues. Hey, what are you eating? What are you losing weight
Yeah,
together, right? And
100%.
so
Yep.
so very disciplined sport.
Mhm.
Um, from when you're in high school now, right?
Mhm.
Talk about your mindset was college soccer.
Yeah.
Talk about, because a lot of young athletes I talk to, they're so nervous about the recruiting process.
Mhm.
Can you talk about that a little bit? Hey, what it
Mhm.
was like to be a high school student? You know you were good. You realize you were
Mhm.
good. Now all of a
Yeah.
sudden, where am I going to go?
Yeah. So, being a college coach now, the rules have changed. So now we can't talk to players until June going into their junior year versus when I was playing in high school, there was no rules. So kids would commit 7th grade, 8th grade, freshman year. Freshman year became the popular time to recruit and verbally commit. So I was actually kind of on the later side. I was towards the end of my sophomore year. And I didn't get that many looks. Like that's the thing is Rutgers obviously was local. They've seen me play a lot, but other than that, there wasn't that many college coaches knocking on my door. And my other teammates had a list of like 50 schools that they were talking to, and 50 schools reached out to me. This many people reached out to me, and meanwhile, I was like, I have really small schools that I have no interest in. I knew I wanted to play D1, and I think I had very small D1 schools that I was like, you know what, if I want to play pro, I know that's not going to be my pathway. And it really came down to one tournament that I had a really, really good tournament, and, you know, a couple schools reached out, and then that kind of pushed my process into gear. But I was kind of panicking a little bit,
Yeah.
and you're so young at that point. You're like, I don't know what I want. I don't know what school works for me. I would make my mom call college coaches for me because I was so nervous about talking to college coaches that, like, I feel like my parents almost went through the process and I didn't, you know what I mean? So,
Yeah. Yeah.
and
Yeah.
it all worked out, thank goodness. But I think it's just a lot for high school
Yeah.
kids of figuring out, not only is this a right fit sport wise, but is it a right fit academically? Is this going to lead into my future? Like that college really is leading into your future and your career.
Yeah. How did you handle that? All your friends are getting letters, 50 schools you said, and you're getting a couple. Like, how,
Mhm.
how did you handle that mental torture?
Yeah, I mean, I think from a young age, like probably middle school, I had so much like sports anxiety, like performance anxiety, that I eventually talked to a sports psychiatrist, and he helped me a ton. Of I would get so nervous before games, knowing college coaches would watch me, and then like when you're nervous, you're not playing your best
Right.
at all, not even close. So I think I got to a point where I was able to talk to someone, and then get to a point where I was just like, I'm just gonna play freely, and if someone thinks I'm good enough, I'll be good enough. But it was hard. It was very hard seeing so many of my teammates, tell me who was looking at them and other friends committing before me. It became very pressurized. But, in the back of my head, I knew I was gonna end up where I was going to end up, and I was gonna make the most of it. And luckily, Rutgers was the best decision I could have made. But yeah, I mean, it was very stressful trying to figure out that process.
Yeah. Now, did any of your friends get recruited to Rutgers with you?
Yeah, yeah. I had a couple friends, older and then younger, on my club team and high school team, which was actually really awesome.
Well, that makes things easier,
Oh yeah, way
right?
easier.
Oh
Yeah.
yeah, without a doubt. So looking at college sports, right? You're in there. How did playing college sports like really contribute to your personal, you know, growth while you were in school?
Yeah, I mean, I think first and foremost, from a social aspect, you connect with so many athletes being a college athlete. Like you said, Carmen was a baseball player, and, we hung out with a bunch of the baseball players, and we hung out with lacrosse, and honestly every single sport we really got close with, because you're all in the same type of environment
Yeah.
of, you're on the road for 5 days, you're doing homework on the road, and, you're not partying and going out like the rest of the university. You have a game on Thursday, you have a game on Sunday. So I think having the same mentality and finding like likewise people was really great. Especially when you're in high school, it's not really like that because you've kind of people all over. When you get to college, it's like we are, college athletes. We're disciplined. We all want the same thing. So I think just really finding like-minded people in not only my sport but other sports was super comforting.
It's great. So let me ask you, I ask everybody this question who's been on the show. High school, you're one of the best, if
Mhm.
not the best, right?
Mhm.
Now it's time to go to Rutgers. You show up on campus freshman year, day one,
Mhm.
and you're now the youngest person on the team, if not one of them.
Yep.
You got girls that are maybe 5 years ahead of you. They're in the now, and you were involved with the whole COVID mess too, right? Or no?
No, thank goodness. I graduated the year before.
Okay, good.
Yeah.
So you got girls that could have been there 5 years ahead of you.
Mhm.
Talk about walking on campus where you're like in awe, like look at these girls, holy crap, look how great they are, how good they are, or we're like, no problem, I'm gonna fit right in here and I'm gonna kick some butt.
No. I was so nervous. Um, I showed up like a tiny little freshman that I was like scared to look at the seniors in their eyes. I was just gonna put my head down and work. I was not going in there being like, "Oh yeah, I'm gonna start and play." I was just like, "I'm gonna work very hard, and if I see a little bit of minutes, I'll be happy." Um, and like you said, a lot of people go through this where you start and play your whole life going into college, and then you're not a starter or you're not playing as much. So I went in there and I was nervous and I was timid at first. And I'll never forget, my coach pulled me aside in preseason before we started games, and she was like, Kenny, when you're on the soccer field, you're a player. You're not a freshman on the field. You're a soccer player. And
Mm,
that stuck with me, and I still use that bit of advice to, my players now of it's true. When you're on the field, nobody knows who's a freshman, sophomore, junior, senior. You're a soccer player. So
right.
play like it. Like, you shouldn't play like a freshman because you're going to be timid and people are going to, go after you. But when you're on a field, you're just a soccer player. Act like you've been there for 5 years. Act like you're the best player on the field. And I really took that piece of advice and, eventually got more comfortable on the team. And, midway through the year, was starting again. I was starting, playing more minutes, and by the end, when we, made it to the Final Four, I was starting and playing 90 minutes. So it was really just like a growth of growing into it, but I did not come in and start right away. I did not come in and be the big dog on the team. I was very much just like, I need to work my way up.
Right. Now, when did you realize, hey, I belong here. I can play here.
Yeah, I think it was pretty early on in one of the early games. I had a really good game and I realized I can do this. Like, this is like my niche. I know I'm going to thrive here. I knew older players from, like I said, from high school, so they were super helpful of comforting me and being like, "You're doing great." And my coaches were awesome. They were super supportive and, you know, allowing me to. It's okay if you make a mistake. Just like, how do you respond when you make a mistake? But yeah, I mean, I think I learned pretty early on that I belong here, and then as soon as I realized that is when I started thriving and playing better and getting more minutes.
So, how accepting was the team to you coming in and playing at such an early age and time in the while you were there?
I would say majority of people were very accepting because I am a type of player that I'm just gonna put my head down and work. I'm not gonna cause issues. But what I will say is I'll never forget this. One of the older players came up to me probably midway through the year and said, the only reason you're playing is because you played club soccer for, the coaches. And that, like,
Mm.
made me take a step back, and I was like, "Is that what people think? That, like, I don't deserve to play?" Um, Obviously come to know that it was just one jealous player that was the same position as me, but that I feel like I was, like, in shock. I was like, "Oh
Yeah.
my gosh, am I not working hard enough? Like, are people think I'm not good?" But, that it was a short stint, but that was, like, kind of eye-opening for me as a freshman.
Because that's the challenge that freshmen have is you come in, you're taking someone's job
Yeah,
who a year
100%.
before, like, hey, this is mine. And
Yeah,
now
exactly.
and your coach's job, and now you know this as a college coach, your job is to recruit better players than the ones you have now. Every year is to
100%.
bring in better players to take the job. And I don't I think it's kind of rare, but it's more common today, but it's still rare that a freshman comes in and just takes over.
Exactly,
But when that
exactly.
one does come in and take over, yeah, the animosity kicks in,
Oh, yeah.
the excuses come in. Oh, she's
Mhm.
only playing because of him or because of her or because of that. And then
Exactly.
and like you said, the second guessing of yourself starts to click. And you're like, wait a minute, are they right?
Yeah, yeah,
You know?
exactly, 100%.
Yeah. So how did you handle that?
I first talked to my parents and I was like, "This is what was said," and, obviously my parents being supportive was like, "That's not true, you're doing really well, you're working hard, you deserve to be where you're at." But it did bother me for a little bit, and I didn't bring it to my coaches because I didn't wanna bring that onto that player.
Yeah.
I feel like that would have caused more issues. I kinda just put my head down and worked, and, this will lead into, more of this my story of, like, I've always had this kinda chip on my shoulder of, like, wanting to prove people wrong. So as soon as she said that, I was like, "Okay, I'll continue to step on the field and be dominant and be the best player I can possibly be to make
Mm.
it known that, like, you should eat your words at this point," because, I wanted to prove her wrong that, "No, that this isn't the reason why I'm playing because I deserve it."
Well, let's talk about that chip.
Yeah.
right? And how did it happen? How long were you carrying it? Maybe you still carry it till today. You're like, yeah, so I don't think you ever really get
No.
rid of it. But it carries forward into the next career, right? So how did
Yeah.
it start?
It started young. It was the first year that travel started, and I tried out for the travel team, and I
Now,
thought
How
I
how
made the
old were
team.
you?
8 years old.
8 years old.
So, yep. So I thought I made the team. So we are at the team party, and the head coach, pulled my parents aside and said, "Listen, she's really small. I don't think she's ready to play at this level. Like, you need to hold her back a year and just like play one more year of rec and then try out for the travel team next year." So I like when my parents got in the car with me, I was devastated. I just wanted to play travel soccer. All my friends in my grade were on the team, and to be told I was too small, that I wasn't gonna make it, and then I had to wait another year was like I didn't understand it. I was like,
Devastation.
devastation, especially as a young kid. And that leads into why I was like, I'm gonna be a pro soccer player. I'm gonna prove her wrong. And still to this day, I'm like, I should send her an email and just be like, I actually made it.
Have you
But it,
spoken to her since or no?
no, no,
No?
no, no.
Oh my God.
But then it continued. So it continued. We did ODP was this big thing in the soccer world that a lot of players did. It's like you have a New Jersey state team and then you have regional team. And luckily, I made the state team and had a decent experience. But then every year we would have regional tryouts where there'd be regional teams, and I never made it. Never made it. I was devastated. My friends all made it, and that's kind of where my sports performance anxiety started. And that's when I started talking to someone because I'd get so nervous at these camps and these tryouts that I wouldn't perform. So I didn't make that team. And then I get to club soccer, and my club coach, I made the team. I was on this club travel team, and we were starting to get into the recruiting process. I think it was in 8th grade. And he pulled me aside and he was like, "Listen, I don't think you're going to make it. I don't think you're going to be I don't think you're good enough to be a college soccer player. So I
Are
think
you
you should,
kidding me?
I swear." And he said, "I really think you should focus on academics and focus on lacrosse." Because at the time I was playing lacrosse just for fun. He's like, "I think you'd have a better chance of getting a lacrosse scholarship and play college
Now,
lacrosse."
were you good at lacrosse too?
I was good at lacrosse, yeah,
Yeah.
but, like, I didn't have the same love, like, I thought it
Yeah.
was fun. I enjoyed it, I did it because my friends did it, and I played my freshman year in high school, and it was fun to me, but the soccer was, like, a deeper love and a
Yeah.
deeper competitiveness, so, yeah, so then that led into I left the team because I was obviously, "This coach doesn't believe in me, I'm not staying here," and I eventually went on to my club team that I thrived there and I had a great time and eventually got me recruited to Rutgers and so on. But I think the constant "you're too small" was always being thrown my way.
Mm.
Um, and I'm 5'3", so I'm not the tallest, but growing up I was very, very small. I don't think hit a spurt until like junior year of high school. And I think the size like that hurt because it was out of my control. I was
Right.
like, "This is how tall I'm gonna be. There's nothing I can do about it." It's not like they said, "Your skills aren't good," or "You're not fast enough," or, controllables that I could have went and worked on. It was
Yeah.
my height, which I'm like, I cannot control my height. Like, my mom is
You can't force yourself to grow.
exactly. I was like, "My mom's 5 foot, my dad's 5'8". This is what you got. This is how I am." So I think that kinda lingered over my head through my soccer career of "You're too small, you're never gonna make it,"
So
and I
what's
think
the average height of a college soccer player?
hmm, I would
Like,
say probably like 5'7", 5'8". There's some
okay.
tall girls. With that being said, there's definitely some short kids sprinkled in, but I remember, like, looking at the starting lineup and there'd be they'd always take pictures and it would be like everybody super tall and then there'd be a little divot and it'd be me and
Yeah.
then everybody else super tall, but, you know, I didn't mind
Yeah.
it. I, like, once again, chip on my shoulder.
That's good.
Yeah.
Well, okay, so you're at Rutgers, you're
Yeah.
melted in, everything's cool.
Yeah.
What's your favorite moment? What jumps out the most? Hey, I'll never forget this.
Yeah. We were at the University of Virginia. It was an Elite Eight game in the NCAA tournament my freshman year. We were in a PK shootout. Um, and I was actually the next kicker up. I was supposed to be the next kicker up, but our goalkeeper, she actually saved it. So I didn't end up having to take it. And my heart was beating out of my chest. I was like, I cannot be the one to ruin this for us. But luckily we won and, we were celebrating. We made to the Final Four. And it was the first time that Rutgers women's soccer has ever made to the Final Four. And the Final Four is such an honor and such a cool experience. And I think that whole experience of going there and, they had a dinner and we went into our hotel rooms and they had all these gifts for us, all this Nike gear. And it was such a surreal experience. Um, but then I would say the years after that, my sophomore through senior year always felt like a disappointment because we never made it that far. Even though we had successful years, it was such an awesome experience starting that way, but then the years after that, I was like, we failed, because we didn't make it to the Final Four. So it was
Right.
great experience, but at the same time, like it eventually led to disappointment after disappointment for the years to come.
But I think, I've been following Rutgers sports for a long time.
Yeah,
And I think your team, your 4 years of soccer is
yeah.
what put Rutgers women's soccer on the map.
Oh, for sure. For
There's been,
sure.
the people in the past like Carly Lloyd and all that kind of stuff, but their
Yeah.
teams were never that good.
No,
Right? Your
no.
your team is what propelled other young women to say, "Hey, I want to play there."
Oh, yeah. I mean, when I committed to Rutgers, it wasn't a cool thing per se.
Yeah.
Like, I think it was, "Oh, yeah, you're from New Jersey, makes sense you're going to Rutgers." But now kids are dying to go to Rutgers.
Yeah.
Kids want to go to Rutgers so bad because it's this top 25 team year in and year out. So
Yep.
I think that is a cool thing that, my team and the teams after can hold that with us of,
Yeah.
we put Rutgers on the map and now it's like a powerhouse team.
Now you as the alumni, you're like, "Hey, what are you doing? You pick that up. Get busy. You better start winning." It's like
Exactly,
don't let us
exactly.
down, right?
Exactly. Yeah,
That's
exactly.
awesome. So let me ask you this. You're in school now. You're playing like you just said. You got the pressure of now you guys are good,
Mhm.
right? The whole country knows it. Now,
Yeah.
and obviously the state of New Jersey is expecting it now, right?
Mhm.
You got to go to school. You got to go to class. You got to study. How the heck
Mhm.
did you balance let everybody know what it's like to be a college athlete at that level, having to balance all of that. How did that work out?
Yeah, I would say freshman year was super eye-opening with academics and balancing academics and, soccer. I think each year it got easier, but my grades were not good my first semester at all. Like I was in shell shock. I was like, this is really hard. Luckily, we had a great academic advisor. Her name's Randy Larson. She's the best, still in contact with her today. And she really is one of the big reasons why I survived academically. I mean, she basically held my hand for the first full year of, I had 10 hours of study hall a week and had tutors for multiple classes. But eventually you kind of get into a flow where you realize like when is good time to do homework and study, when's a good time to just rest because obviously I have a game the next day, so I need to be rested. But it was definitely, a wake up call my first year and trying to figure out a good balance of I have to do soccer and I have to do academics, but I also want to make friends here. So, my senior year I feel like was a walk in the park. I feel like grades were easy for me, classes, were easy, but it was not always like that of trying to figure out how to balance it all and wanting to perform my best, but at the same time, I needed a degree and I needed to, get good grades and honestly, the my freshman year, I was nervous I wasn't going to be eligible. I mean, I didn't come close to not being eligible, but that was always
You
a thing
worried
in my
about it.
head. Yeah, of course, of
Yeah.
course. If you get one bad grade, I was like, am I going to be okay? So that stress of that, but yeah, I mean, it's not for the weak. It is very difficult, I will
Yeah.
say.
What is the GPA requirement now to actually to play? Is it still 2.0?
Yeah, 2-0.
Okay.
Yep.
So talk about that for a second. You mentioned what her name was, it Randy? Randy
Yeah,
Larson,
Brandy.
right?
Yeah.
So she's one of the support mechanisms you had, right? Talk
Hmm.
about that. You're at a gigantic school, Big Ten, powerhouse school in the country. Talk about all the support, or was
Mm.
there, or maybe there wasn't, the kind of support you had around you to help balance out all of those things you were having to deal with.
Yeah, no, the support was awesome. We had Randy was our academic advisor, and we'd meet with her once a week, and she would know exactly when we'd have exams, when we'd have papers due, and she would provide any help we needed. And with that, our coaches also knew how we were doing in school, which was kind of cool, but also kind of nerve wracking because
Yeah,
if you get a bad grade, your coach is going
they
to
know.
know. Exactly. So I'm like, if they didn't know, I feel like people would get away a little bit more with not caring as much. But if you get brought into coach's office about your grades, it was not a good thing. So I think it was really cool that the academic advisors and our coaches all worked really closely together of wanting for everybody to succeed and get good grades, and it wasn't just a place where we just wanted to win games. It was we wanted to become the best version of ourselves. We wanted to get a great academic degree and move on from Rutgers being a better person.
Now, wasn't the soccer team, because I see all the stuff they post, which team has the highest GPA and all that. Isn't
Mhm.
the women's soccer team usually at the top or one of the top?
Oh yeah, I think in general, even across the board, I think women's soccer players get really good grades. I think everywhere I've been, everywhere I've heard, like women's soccer is always at the top of having good grades because I think as girls, like I don't know, like I think we kind of want to like care more about our grades, and that doesn't say anything to any of the guys, but
Yeah.
guy athletes, they
Oh,
come
yeah.
in and they're like,
Hey,
we're gonna go, yeah,
see, get
exactly,
degrees,
exactly,
right? Right.
yeah, yeah,
But so let's fast forward a little bit. I want to hear about that speech.
mm.
Carmen, I mean, it's affecting him till today. You know what I mean? So can you
Yeah.
talk about that? What was the theme behind it? Let's go through that a little bit.
Yeah, I think it really stemmed from not needing outside validation to, feel accomplished. I
Mm,
really spoke upon, being cut from teams and being told I wasn't good enough constantly, year after year being told I wasn't good enough and never allowing that to, you know, make me not believe in myself and make me, want to throw my hands up and quit and, cry myself to sleep. It wasn't that. It was a fuel to my fire. It was I had such internal, motivation and I didn't need outside validation. And I think that it didn't happen overnight. I think everyone wants outside validation in everything you do in life, in
sure.
sports, in work. That's just how we are as humans. So I think my speech really touched upon that of I don't need outside validation to feel accomplished. Like I believe in myself and I know my parents believe in me and I know my coaches believe in me and my, close circle believes in me and I don't need, the rest of the world to validate me with giving me an award. And I know you read off my accolades, but that, came towards the end of my career because leading up to that moment in college, like I never won any type of awards or anything like that. I was always grinding and working, but always being overlooked. And I think if I allowed myself to just, you know, listen to the outside people saying I'm not good enough, and I would have never been where I am today of, you know, playing professional soccer and, now coaching. And I think that is a big reason why I'm coaching is because so many coaches in my life told me I wasn't good enough and I don't want to be that coach to other people. I want
Mm.
to be a motivator to these players no matter what their goal is, right? I want to be able to motivate them, not ever put them down.
So you mentioned before about all the pregame anxiety and stress and worry
Yeah.
about the college coaches or anybody watching you. And
Yeah.
now at the end of your college career, you're like, hey, I don't need any validation from anybody. When
Yeah.
did that switch happen? Was that like sophomore year, junior year? When did that happen? So I don't need that.
Yeah, I think a little bit sophomore year, but more so junior year and I think I was named captain my junior year and I was the only junior who was named captain and the other 3 were seniors and I think that, you know, I was like, yeah, I belong here. I wasn't sitting there like, is this a fluke that I'm the only junior as a captain? I knew in that moment that, all my hard work had paid off and I'm where I'm supposed to be and I'm here to lead the team. And, you know, the at this point I was like, I don't care if I get any awards. I don't care if, I don't make the Big Ten team. And that year, my junior year, probably was my best year of soccer and same with my senior year. And I think it correlates because that was really the year that I was just like, whatever. Like if I don't get awards, I don't get awards, but I'm leading this team and I'm going to lead this team as best as I possibly can and I'm going to work every day and I'm happy where I'm at.
That is so cool because I'm just sitting here thinking, as if I was your parents,
Mhm.
right? Mom and dad, you
Mhm.
said, like you said, they're your biggest cheerleader, your biggest fan,
Yeah.
and they're with you side by side, all the tears, all the
Yeah.
everything, right? And
Yeah.
all of a sudden, you call them up, "Hey, mom, dad, I just was made captain."
Mm.
How did
Yeah.
that go down?
They were just so proud and not shocked at all, and they were just like, "Keep carrying yourself on and off the field and don't change who you are now that you're a captain. Just keep being yourself and lead by example and help the younger players." I think that's one of the biggest thing is there's going to be freshmen who are nervous like you were, and just know that. Don't expect these freshmen to come in and be okay. So I tried to be a captain that, tried to reach out to everybody and be personable on and off the field.
Wow. Now, how did you feel when you were now? Was it a team vote? Was it a coach's vote? A little bit of both? When you were elected, how does that work?
Yeah, it was a little bit of both. I was shocked at first, not because I didn't think I deserved it, but there was a lot of seniors, and I I just thought it was going to be the three seniors. But my coaches were like, "We think you deserve it. Everyone speaks very highly of you on the team, and they had nice things to say." So I was shocked at first, but then I was like, "All right, how am I gonna help this team culturally? How am I gonna help this team on the field and off the field and just become the best team possible and allowing myself to lead?" And I think being captain's great, but I think it comes with a lot of responsibility and a lot of stress and holding a lot of responsibility when the team's not doing well or the culture's not well or we lose a game we're not supposed to and just that sits a little bit deeper when you
Mm.
are a captain.
But you're making me think of two questions.
Yeah.
When you said culture,
Yeah.
right?
Mhm.
You can feel it in the locker room, right?
Mhm.
You can feel when things are buzzing and humming, and you
Yeah.
can feel like, hey, we're losing something. As
Mm.
a captain, how did you handle the good and the bad?
Yeah. I mean, I think the good was the easiest part of being a captain is when your team is winning and everyone's feeling good about themselves and, you know, I tried to keep us on that high of let's just keep this going, let's keep the good vibes going. But, you know, it is a long season and things are going to happen. So there were moments where, some people weren't bought in and, you know, not really wanting to be there. And I tried, to try to pull them aside and be like, what do you need? But at the end of the day, I think you can't cater to the negativity and the bottom. You know what I mean? I think
Hmm.
at that point I realized they weren't gonna they weren't gonna change. So I just put my energy and my effort into, the 95% of the rest of the team that was bought in and wanting to be there and, happy and ready to work. So I think that kind of ate away at me a little bit of not having the full team on that level, but really just putting my energy back into those who put energy in.
That's awesome. So you think about the young girl. Let's fast forward a little bit, your senior year. Okay.
Mhm.
You got a freshman. I'm sure you were able to eyeball a couple who in up here they're struggling,
Yeah.
right? And
Yeah.
maybe they were going through the same stuff you were dealing with. How
Yeah.
did you handle that? How did you bring them in? How did you put your arms around them? What did you do to make them feel better? Because they were going through kind of what you went through.
Yeah, for sure. I think it was more smaller things of in practice, if they made a good pass, really keying in on, making a comment in front of the group of like, "Hey, it was a really good pass," or "Hey, you had a really good game today," or "You did excellent at practice." And if they had if I noticed they're having a hard time of pulling them aside outside of practice and just talking of like, "What's going on? What do you need?" And a lot of time it was just mental of I'm homesick or I'm struggling balancing school and soccer and I kind of just told them of I went through the same thing and I promise each year will get easier and you just got to focus on one thing at a time when you're at soccer focus on soccer when you're in class focus on class don't try to allow your mind to go 100 different directions.
So how the heck, I mean, college sports, Big Ten, it's a
Yeah.
grind, man. It's a
Yeah.
grind, right?
Hmm.
How did you keep yourself motivated, you know, prior to being a captain, right? And
Yeah.
then once you became captain, I'm sure the pressure to lead was crazy. And
Yeah.
you have your moments of whatever. How did you
Yeah.
keep yourself jacked up and motivated in front of everybody when the grind was really tough?
Yeah, I think I was very like in the moment. I When I was at soccer, I was putting my full energy into soccer. But with that being said, I think I didn't have the easiest road with injuries in college. I had random things. Sprained my ACL and MCL, and I broke my shin bone, and
Oh
it
my
was just
God.
it was just kind of
How
all
painful was that?
painful. But I actually finished the season. I think I played like 8 games with a
With a
broken
broken
shin.
shin?
Yeah.
Holy Jesus.
But I think just really pushing through any type of pain that I had and putting the team first and, you know, I just loved soccer. I never hit a point in college where I was like fell out of love with soccer and unfortunately it does happen to players where they get to college and they're burnout or they fall out of love with soccer. But I just had so much fun at practice and in games. Like it was so much joy to me. Um, it it never really stopped having that type of joy when I was at soccer, and I think that allowed me to be fully myself and lead by example because of how much joy I was having.
So what do you what did you where did you find the joy? How did you keep that level so high of loving the game?
I think it's just as simple as I I just had so much fun playing, and I think each day I wanted to get better, and I think wanting to get better allowed me to work hard and be focused, but at the same time, when we're at a water break, allowing myself to be goofy with my friends. And I think that was the point where I just kept loving it versus always being so serious that, before practice, during a water break, after practice, like me and my friends were just joking around and we were singing and dancing and, just having a great time. And that really allowed me to continue to love the sport versus always making it so serious and always making it super pressurized versus, I get to do something I love with my friends.
Yeah, that's had to be cool.
Yeah.
So you mentioned you broke your shin. Okay.
Yeah. I don't
So
know the proper medical term, but yeah, something in the shin, yeah.
yeah, I get it. I don't
Yeah.
need the medical term. So was that the most devastating injury you had while you were in college?
In college, yes. I mean, it didn't actually, no, I lied. I sprained my MCL and MCL, which actually made me physically sit out. With the shin, I just had a lot of pain, so I just pushed through. But it was my junior year, the quarterfinals of Big Ten, and we were playing Penn State, and Penn State is our biggest rival. And it was like 5 minutes in, and I sprained my MCL, and I knew immediately because I'd done it in the past in high school, and I tried to tough it out, but with knees, it's just not something you can tough out. So, I limped off and, eventually got scans and I was out. But we lost that game in PKs and I felt devastated. I felt like I let my team down. Obviously injuries are inevitable and you can't control it, but
Yep.
and then we, made the NCAA tournament and I didn't play in the first game, but I played in the second game in the second round NCAAs against West Virginia, and played, I mean, very loosely because I had a massive knee brace on and I was just not the same player I was, and I could barely move and played limited minutes. But, we eventually lost that game in PKs, and I thought I let my team down again. And it just goes through your head of like,
Yeah.
if I didn't get injured, would this have been different? So I think that was very tough because the timing of it, of being in playoffs for Big Tens and NCAAs, like as athletes, that's what we work towards, is winning championships. So not being able to perform at my best was pretty tough.
How did you handle that mentally? Like, you have an injury. I don't know what's worse. Is it worse sitting on the bench because you can't play, or that you're out there knowing you just can't give it everything you got
Hmm.
and everybody knows it? Like, what's worse?
I really do think being out there and just not being your best self. I think playing when you play and you have a bad game, it happens, but you know it, and it sucks. But playing and physically not being able to do much was so frustrating for me, and knowing I wasn't really helping my team in any capacity, was very frustrating. And like I said, it just was very disappointing. And losing in PKs for the second time in a row was very tough for everybody.
Your games come a lot of penalty kick games.
Yeah.
Like, it's like
Yep.
you keep. I think you brought it up like 10 times. All these penalty kicks.
We oh, yeah, my senior year, we broke the record for the amount of overtime games played.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
It's funny whenever I talk to somebody about soccer, I kind of kid around and make a joke. I'm like, why the heck do you guys kick the ball backwards all the time?
I know. I
And
say that as a coach now. I'm like,
yeah, I'm
"Go
like, wait a minute,
forward."
just go forward. But
Yeah.
every person I talk to is like a soccer
Mm,
connoisseur. They're like, well,
yeah.
that's how we set the plays up. That's how I'm like, I get it, but just kick it forward. And then the other thing I don't get is this overtime thing. Like,
Mm,
why does the clock keep going in overtime or something, or however that works? Where, okay, or injury timeouts and
yeah,
the
yeah.
professional stuff. I'm like, what is all that? Just stop
Oh,
the
I know.
clock in cold
Oh,
game.
I know. Luckily in college, they do stop the clock if there's an injury
Okay,
or something. But in the pros, yeah, you're right. They do not stop the clock ever. So they could add 10 minutes to the end of your
yeah,
game
and you don't know
because
when
of
it's over.
downtime. Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. It's maddening. I agree.
Now, how about you as the player out on the field? Do you know how much time you got left? Do the refs tell you?
Luckily in college, yes, because it's on the scoreboard. But when it comes to the pros and they do the added time, you have no idea. Like
So you just
and
keep
at that
going
point,
and
oh yeah, yeah,
yeah,
brutal.
that's gonna be hard to play with.
Oh yeah, 100%
Oh my
brutal.
God.
Hmm.
So you mentioned Penn State before.
Yeah.
So they're your biggest rival,
Oh yeah.
right? And they're pretty good,
Yeah, they're very good.
right? How did you handle? No, you play a lower level team. We're gonna go in there. We're gonna do our job. We're gonna get out and go home.
Yeah.
How did you prepare mentally for the competition of the big games? Knowing you're going in, you're playing a top school in the country. These are the teams you got to beat, and it's not just a school from Texas. It's a
Yeah.
school that's not that far down the road that is like always in your face.
Yeah, I mean, I think Penn State, you can ask anybody that played sports at Rutgers. Penn State is definitely everybody's number one rival of, we hate Penn State, and it's a deep, deep rival for us that, every time anyone in the sports realm from Rutgers plays Penn State, like we want to go after them. We want to tackle harder. We want to run harder.
You want to
Um,
kill them.
exactly, exactly, 100%. But I think we all as a group had the cocky mentality of we're going to beat them, and we don't care who they have. We don't care if they have national team players. Like, we're Rutgers. We're a gritty team. We're going to go after them. And I think that's why the games were always so exciting, because it was always back and forth. It wasn't always Penn State always beating Rutgers or Rutgers always beating Penn State. It would go back and forth of Rutgers beat Penn State this year, vice versa. So I think every single time we play each other, it was a battle. But we never had that mentality playing. We could have played the U.S. Women's National Team, and we were always the mentality of like, we're gonna beat them.
Yeah.
We actually played my sophomore year, we played Wisconsin, and Rose Lavelle, who's on the national team, she's a big time player for them, was on Wisconsin at the time, and I just remember having the mentality of like, we can take her, that's fine,
Yeah.
you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Meanwhile, she scored 2 goals on us, but but that's just was the mentality that we had of like, we don't care who we play, we're gonna go after them.
But you have to have that mentality.
Yeah,
You can't go in scared. If you go in scared, you've already lost,
yeah, exactly,
you know?
exactly. You have to. Yep.
So speaking of scared, let's talk about incoming college freshmen.
Mm,
Now, you know, you're the old lady on campus, is how they
mhm.
look at you, know, even though you're a young woman, you're like you got a
Yeah,
gazillion years ahead of you, but they look at you as this older person now, right?
yeah.
What kind of advice can you give the high school seniors
Mm.
coming out of college or coming out of high school, going into that level of soccer? What do they need to be prepared for?
I always tell, players that are coming in as freshmen is first and foremost, come in fit. Be
Mm.
the most fit you can possibly be because that is the first impression you're making on your coach. If you come in fit, the coaches, know that you did the work. You know you did the outside work. And then I
I
would
mean, the
just
coaches
say
can see that. They can, as soon as you walk in, they
100%.
can tell,
Exactly.
right?
And most majority of programs have fitness tests, and
Yep.
from the get-go, they know, who came prepared, who didn't. So come in the most fit you possibly can. And I think the second is put your head down and work for the first year. Don't come in and think just because you were, high school player of the year, X, Y, and Z, that you automatically deserve playing time. You need to earn playing time in college, especially when some of these players have been there 4 or 5 years. So I think if you come in fit and you come in head down and work and just do what you need to do, don't cause any ruckus, don't cause any drama, just go to practice, be your best self, work hard, playing time will come. Don't just come in and not work hard, not be fit because it's going to be a long year for you.
What what did the coaches do to the girls who came in and they weren't fit? How did that go down?
Honestly, it really just put them in a hole. It just put them in a hole in regards to they didn't get playing time in the beginning, and then by the time if they eventually did get fit, it was too late. That, the team already was grooving and people who were fit from the start are doing well, and it's harder to break into a team, midway through the season or later in the
Yeah.
season. So, I think it really did put them in a hole of like, "You're not fit, we can't play you. You gotta get fit," and obviously, fitness doesn't come overnight, so
No.
by the time they became fit, it's just they didn't see the playing time they expected.
Now, when you were a captain, did you see anybody come in not fit and you had to deal with that?
Yeah, so we, as captains, we tried to, motivate the players before they even came in for preseason. So, you know, May, June, July, we were really, sending group messages of like, this is the run today. Make sure everyone's doing it. Get out there. If you have any questions, let us know. So we were really trying to make sure they knew, like, let's do the work now. So then when we get to campus, like, we don't have to worry about getting on the line and running. We can just focus on soccer. So I think, those who bought in and did it came in fit. Those who didn't, once again, putting themselves in a hole and they're not ready, and coach can't put you in if you're not fit.
Yeah. You tried you were staying ahead of it.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly.
That's awesome. So I don't know how you can answer this question because
Mhm.
it didn't really happen after college. But
Mhm.
transitioning out of college sports,
Yeah.
I coined this phrase, um, athletes die twice.
Mhm.
They die when the last time they play, then they got to live with it
Mhm.
though, and then
Yeah.
they die in real life.
Yeah.
So you were fortunate to get drafted, to play professionally,
Mhm.
which has got to be, and we'll talk about that in a second, which has got to be so
Mhm.
cool. But talk about the transition. Hey, this is my last game. Rutgers, I'm done. How
Mhm.
did that emotion? What was that like? And then what advice can you give the girls today about, hey, it's going to happen, and when it does, be prepared for what?
Yeah, I was devastated. My last game, we were at Duke, and it was a NCAA game, and I remember looking at the clock, and it was like a minute left, and
Was it a penalty
timers.
kick game?
No, it wasn't. It wasn't. We were losing 1-0 and a minute was going by, and I just remember this sounds so pathetic, but I was running around on the field with tears in my eyes because I knew in less than a minute my career was over, and I think luckily enough, I did get to play after college, but I don't think there's anything like college athletics. I think the moment, that was my last game for Rutgers, I was heartbroken because I loved everything about Rutgers. I loved playing, and I loved being a college athlete, playing in front of, my other athlete friends and my family. It was devastating. And I think my biggest advice to athletes, current athletes, is enjoy every single moment. Enjoy the 6 a.m. lift. Enjoy the fitness that you have to run, you know, hill sprints. Enjoy every away trip, even when you're not feeling up for it, even when you know, are frustrated with the coach or frustrated with playing time. Just enjoy every minute and soak it in, and don't look to the future. Don't look in the past. Just live in the moment, because you really will never get anything like college athletics ever again. Really, there's nothing like it.
So let me ask you this question. I ask everybody this. Can you describe what it feels like to be out there playing? Can you put, hey, this is what it's like.
I'm trying to think. I feel like for me, it was pure joy, and it was just such a cool experience every time I played a game. I am a very competitive person and just wanting to win every game, but just playing, especially a night game at home, was just nothing like it. Where, you look in the crowd's filled with your family, your friends, other athletes, and playing with, the university on your chest. You just feel pride. I think pride and joy is the two biggest words I'd use, when I played.
Yeah, pride. That's a big one.
Mm, mhm,
And because the non-athletic students, what do they call them at
mhm.
Rutgers? NARPs,
NARPs, yeah,
NARPs, right? And they're like, "What are you talking about?"
yeah,
And I was like, you can't explain it. Like if you're
mm,
out on the field, you're in the moment, you're playing, like you said, the pride, the joy,
mhm,
even though a lot of pain comes along with it, right?
yeah.
And you try to explain it to a person who's never done it, you just can't.
No, you can't.
But I can sit here and talk to you, even though my playing days are a long, long time ago.
Yeah,
I know exactly how you felt,
mhm.
and because I've been there, done it, and it's like a euphoric feeling when you're out there.
It is,
The
yep.
only way I can explain it.
Yeah,
you
I
know,
agree.
and,
Yeah,
and, and it's crazy. But it's something that every college athlete can talk about where there's synergy, likability, and commonality to any other athlete in any sport, doesn't matter. You
yeah,
still have the same feeling,
absolutely.
you know?
Yep.
So let's talk about draft day.
Oh, yeah.
How the heck was that? Must have been crazy. And I can only imagine your mind saying, I told you, I told you, I told you, right?
Yeah, I mean, so draft day, my year was in Chicago, and I did not go because, to be honest with you, I was like, "You know what? Just like how my career has gone, there's a chance I'm not gonna make it, and I'm just gonna have to roll up my sleeves and work for it." So I was in my living room with my mom and my dad, and we put it on, and, you're seeing people get drafted, and you're seeing familiar faces, and I'm getting very nervous, and I just keep telling myself, "Whatever happens, happens."
But did everybody tell you you should get drafted? You're probably going to get
No,
drafted? Or there's no
no.
way you're getting drafted?
It was just a complete unknown, like,
All right.
complete unknown. Like, I really had no idea. I was hopeful, but at the same time, I was like, you know, who knows? I think there's only like 38 people that got drafted my year, and now things have changed, but not that many kids that get drafted. So I'm watching, and finally it's like 28, and then the next person up is, Sky Blue, which is my home state. So, and this is, I'm pretty sure, their second to last pick that Sky Blue had. And in my mind, I was like, all right, if anyone would take me, it'd be Sky Blue because I'm in their backyard. But so I was like, this might be my last chance. So finally, I said my name, and I was just in shock. Like, parents were pumped up, and I was like, just had the
Everybody
biggest
had to be
smile.
crying.
Oh yeah, crying. I just had the biggest smile on my face, and I allowed, that feeling. I allowed that feeling for like 5 minutes, and then finally in my head, I was like, all right, now I got to get to work.
Get to
Like
work.
I did, yeah. I didn't allow myself to just like be like, wow, I need it, because the way it works is like you get drafted, but it doesn't mean you get a contract. So it's basically like you're invited to the preseason, basically.
Yeah.
So I knew in that moment I actually went to a training session that night because I was like, I got to get to work. The grind doesn't stop. So yeah, absolute unreal feeling. We'll always remember it, but it really was. And my mom actually brought down, like I told you earlier when I wrote on a paper when I was 8, I will become a pro soccer player. My mom had framed it. So I have a picture of me
Oh my
holding
God.
that.
That's
Yeah.
gotta be so
So,
cool.
oh, so cool. It was a moment where I was like, I did it for little Kenny, and all the people that told me I wasn't going to make it, it didn't matter because I believed in myself. And, it was finally the aha moment where I was like, I made it.
That has got to be incredible. I can't
Yeah.
even imagine. You know, so what's it like to get paid to play a game?
Oh, awesome. Absolutely awesome. Luckily, the league is in a way better place right now than when I got drafted. The pay wasn't great, but in my mind, I
But
didn't
who
care. I was like,
cares? Who cares?
exactly. I was gonna say I didn't even care. I was like, I gotta get money to just play soccer,
Yeah.
and I don't have to do school. Like this is a
Yeah.
dream come true. Like I just get to go to practice, get a paycheck. No, it was awesome. Everything I dreamed of, but similar message of I got there and I was nervous and I had Carly Lloyd on my team and I had
How
post
was that?
oh, surreal because I had a signed poster of her in my bedroom
Yeah.
as a child growing up and now I'm on a team with her and she's one of the best soccer players in the world and it was such a cool, surreal moment for me every day at practice. Like, I would just look at her and I'd be like, "Oh my gosh, this is crazy." Like, I'm on a
Yeah.
team with Carly Lloyd. Um, but, it was the same thing, like, I had to work and I came in and luckily I, earned a contract, but, I didn't see that much playing time and I knew, like, I was frustrated, but I knew, I have women who have been in the pro league for 10 plus years. Like I need to work and eventually I did get an opportunity to play and did well with my minutes, but it wasn't easy just not playing
Yeah.
in games at all. Like the first half of the season I didn't step foot on the field and never in my life did I not play, like
Yeah.
this was the first time in my life where I was like not seeing any minutes. So that was a readjustment in my mind.
Now, how good are those? Those girls must be so
Oh,
good at that level. Like,
unbelievable. It's crazy because when you're in college, you can see a clear difference between starters and subs and players who never see the field versus at the pro level, every single
everybody's
person is
good.
so good. Like at practice, you can't point out one person that's not good. Everybody's
Yeah.
unbelievable, truly. Like not one bad person on your team. So the level is insane and just how good these women are and was truly remarkable to see.
So what did you have to do? You're getting there. You show up. You're in awe of everybody, right?
Yeah.
And you're like, I'm not playing. What did you figure out to turn up whatever you had to turn up to get out there on the field?
Just staying consistent. Like,
Yeah.
I think not putting my head down and saying, "Woe is me," is just come in, smile on my face, work hard, that's it. Not cause a ruckus, not, you know, go into the coach's office every day and say, "Why am I not getting more playing time?" And I think the older players did help me a lot because once again, similar to college, they were in my shoes where they're like, "I didn't play for the first 4 years of my career." And, you know, whenever you get a moment, just make the most of it and just be confident. So I just came in, worked, left. Like that was just on repeat. Just tried to stay consistent, tried to, you know, stay fit because I wasn't getting game minutes. So just really just trying to stay in it.
Right. So how do you stay mentally focused when you know you're not playing? You're at
Yeah.
the best level out there. You're playing
Yeah.
with your childhood heroes,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Like, how do you stay mentally focused?
I think it's one of those situations where, one, I was very grateful to be there. I was very
Mm,
grateful to be a professional, and I recognized that the players in my position were vets. They had been there for a very long time, so I just allowed myself to be a sponge and learn from everybody around me and just learn from the older players, and they've been in it, and not really focus on, "Oh, I'm not getting minutes," versus focusing on, each day I can get better and be a better soccer player and learn from the best soccer players in the world.
and how about Mia Hamm? Was she already out of it by then?
Oh, yeah, she was out of it.
She's
Yeah.
long gone.
Yeah.
Because you said UNC. Is that why you like that school?
Oh, 100%. Yep,
Because
Mia
of
Hamm.
her?
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
See, I know a little about it,
Yeah, you got it.
you know? So tell me how playing at the Big Ten level, playing at the
Mm.
professional level has made you the coach that you are today.
Yeah, I think, one, I hold my players to a very high standard on and off the field. I think I'm always preaching to be a good teammate, be a good person, and work hard. I say, I also coach club soccer, so I coach freshmen in high school, and I always tell them working hard is the bare minimum. I always tell them, there are
Love
going to
that.
be days where you have an off pass or your shot's off, but if you're working hard, I'll never be mad at you as a coach. So I think working hard, being a gritty player, and just, being a good person, a good teammate is something I look for in players on my club team and college team, of just upholding that standard. And I know I'm tough. I know I'm definitely a tough coach because I've been at the highest level. So I think I expect excellence, but at the same time, I know, you know, not everyone's going to go on and play pro soccer. And I respect people who, come into college and they're like, I want to be a doctor. I'm like, that's awesome. Like, how do we help you then on and off the field be the best version of yourself to then be the best doctor you can possibly be?
Well, I love what you said. Working hard is the bare minimum.
Yeah.
Okay, as a coach,
Yeah.
and you said you're a tough coach,
Yeah.
right? So when you see a girl player and you can tell she's not
Mm.
putting it in, how do you handle that
I
as a
think I
coach?
just Yeah, yeah, yeah. On If we're in the middle of a game, I'll kind of, you know, shout their name and be like, "Let's go pick it up." But at the end of the game, I'll try my best to pull them aside and just be like, "Everything okay today? What's going on?" And, kind of hear their perspective, because sometimes you don't know what's going on behind closed doors. Something could have happened at home that I don't know about. So I try to be more personable, of understanding truly what went wrong, but at the same time, like, I'll say to them, like, you need to work harder though on the field. And I voice that to the group as a whole, and I don't usually single people out, but I'll be like, we need to work harder out there. We're being outworked. And I think that stems from, my dad used to always say this to me before every game. He would say, outwork everybody. So he
Mm,
would just say, you should be the hardest working person on the field. And he always said, outwork everybody. So that I definitely hold with me as a coach, of like, nobody should outwork you.
mm, that's cool. Your dad must
Yeah.
have been tough.
Yeah, he was and he wasn't, because I feel like I held myself to a standard, but, like, I think he engraved that into me.
Now, who was tougher, your mother or your father?
I don't know. I feel like any given day was one or the other.
Right. Now,
Yeah.
were they like really intense parents with sports, or were they like, okay, if you like it, great, we'll support it, or were they like intense?
I think they just read off my vibe of, like, they knew I was intense, so then they brought the intensity to me because they knew I could handle it. But I think if I would have been like, the soccer's not really for me, I think they would have been like, okay, like, what are we doing next? But my dad's been a wrestling coach for, oh my gosh, like 30 plus years. So he's also a coach, so he understands it. And I try to take, his coaching mentality and
Yeah.
bring it to soccer, even though wrestling and soccer are completely different sports. But just, you know, his standards I try to keep the same with, my teams.
So the more intense you got, the more intense they got.
100%.
So
Yep.
they kind of fed off of you.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, that's
Yep.
that's cool. Well, how about let me ask you this question. Man, you've done so many cool things, right?
Mm.
Looking back, is there anything you would have done differently throughout your career?
I think really just not getting so worked up about accolades. And I think that's hard to say. And I know I told you, by junior year, I kind of was like, it is what it is. But I think even in high school, all the accolades that they'd give out, like, player of the year, this and that, I think I got too worked up about winning awards versus just playing. Like, just play. If you don't win it, you don't win it. And I know that's easier said than done now, but I think back then I'd let it eat away at me a little bit of like, oh, I didn't win this award and this player won this award, and just comparison versus just playing and being myself.
I think you say, oh, it's probably easier said than done. It's harder now, I think,
I
than
know.
when you were playing because it's
Yeah.
everybody's comparing everybody to everything. It's not like you played
Oh,
that
I know.
long ago. Geez, it's only a couple
I
of
know.
years ago. Yeah, but it's everybody's comparing everybody to everybody. It's all over
Yep.
social media. If
Oh,
somebody
yeah.
wins an award, that everybody knows it. You know,
Yep.
if I
Yep.
go back a gazillion years ago, if you didn't read it in the newspaper, you never knew anybody had anything,
Yeah,
and it
exactly.
wasn't on the news. Like,
Mhm.
it was crazy. Like Rutgers football, Rutgers sports there was no Big Ten network. There was nothing. There was channel
I
two,
know.
4, and 7, and it
Right.
was the
Right.
Giants and the Knicks and the Mets and that kind of stuff, you know?
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
that's cool. So advice, college kids coming out into the real world,
Mm. Yep.
okay? What kind of advice can you give them to prepare for when the game's over? It's time to get into the life of the next step. What kind of advice can you give them?
Yeah, I think just the best advice I would give is you're still the same person, even though, you're no longer playing sports. You still have the same morals, you still have the same values, and just use that work ethic into the work world, wherever that may take you, and use, what you learned as a college athlete of camaraderie and being a teammate and working hard and time management. Use that to whatever you do in life because it will help you. And I know so many employers that say they look to hire college athletes because of their work ethic and what morals they hold. So I think just holding that and then, find something that you love to do, whether it's working out, finding an intramural team to play on if you still need to get your competitive edge out. I know a lot of people struggle with that. Speaking from experience and speaking, to a bunch of my friends of missing that competitive nature. So, find something that brings you joy that you get those endorphins out. Don't just like let it bottle up.
Mm. And it's hard to do for when you get out of college. It's like, where do I go? What do I do? I can just go to
Mhm.
the gym so many hours of the day. I could just run
Yeah.
so much on my own. It's how do you find that competitive drive somewhere,
Yeah.
you
Yeah.
know?
Exactly.
So what's your future look like? I mean, you're still a young woman, and I just want to, why everything's live here. Congratulations, you just got married the other day.
Thank you.
Which is awesome.
Appreciate it.
So what does your professional future look like?
Yeah, I mean, I want to be a head coach one day of a college team. I know I still have a lot to learn and I'm continuing to learn every single day and grow as a coach. But I do want to be a head coach of a college team and hopefully lead that team to win championships and continue to, help the youth game in the soccer realm and help the college game as well and just be the best coach I can possibly be.
So what does that path look like for a young former professional college player? I mean,
Mhm.
college and professional player who's a
Mhm.
couple years into the coaching world. Like, what is it like a 10-year track before you're head coach, or could it happen like in 2 years, boom, or what does that trajectory look like?
Yeah, I feel like everybody's is different, so there's no one path. I think for my own personal sake, I think I'll have a feeling when I'm ready. I think once I feel completely confident in knowing the ins and outs of coaching, because college coaching is not just coaching, there's so much more to it.
It's a
recruiting
business.
and
Yeah.
exactly. You are a business woman, so it's um once I feel confident, I feel like I'll start to, get myself out there and try to feel things out to try to be a head coach. But in the meantime, I couldn't even tell you like when. I couldn't be like, yeah, 5 years or 10 years or 20. I feel like I'll just have a feeling. And that
Yeah.
sounds crazy, but I really feel like once I feel fully ready, then, I'll start to make that jump.
And the experience that you have, your life experience of being an 8-year-old little girl, being told you're too small, too slow, too whatever,
Yeah.
to getting into college, becoming the
Mhm.
captain, getting
Mhm.
drafted, playing in the professional level.
Yeah.
How could you not be a head coach,
Yeah. Exactly.
right?
I mean, yeah.
And what you said before is you said it, an hour ago, is you want to be the inspiration
Mm.
to the young girls coming up.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's
I
cool.
don't want I don't want any of my players, club or college, to ever leave their experience with me as a coach being like, that coach didn't believe in me or that coach told me X, Y, and Z and I'm gonna prove them wrong, which is like how I felt towards some people versus like now I wanna these kids to look back and be like, oh, Coach Kenny like helped motivate me and help get to where I am today. So I really want to be that bridge for their career, whether wherever that might be, whether it's college or career or whatever. Just being able to be a motivational coach of allowing them to be their best selves versus, you know, people trying to prove me wrong.
That's so cool. Now, let me
Mhm.
let me ask you this. You got a choice to make.
Mhm.
Professional head coach, college head coach. Which one is it?
I think college just because I think at the professional level it's more of like a manager role versus college head coach. I feel like you're more of a coach just because you have 18-year-old girls versus professional. You have, you know, 35-year-old women on your team that you're just trying to manage. So I definitely think college and like I said to you before, there's nothing like college sports. It is
Yeah.
awesome in every
Yep.
realm. I'm so grateful to still be in it. I feel like I miss playing, but at the same time, I still get that competitiveness because I'm still in the college sports realm. So I'm very lucky in that aspect. Yeah.
And you can get out there and run around with them now too, which is
Oh,
great.
yeah. Yeah, exactly. I always jump in and play any chance I get.
That's cool. That's awesome.
Yeah.
Well, Kenny, we talked about a ton of stuff tonight. I mean, you have now I see why Carmen's like, you got to get this girl on your show. I can see it. It's
Yeah.
unbelievable. Um, is there anything we haven't talked about do you think we should touch on before we wrap it up?
No, I just think be your best version of yourself and don't compare yourself to others. And just if you put your mind to something, just know you can definitely achieve it if you put the hard work in.
Well, listen, I appreciate you being on,
Of course.
and I will be following Temple Soccer this year,
Appreciate it.
right? And
Appreciate it.
everybody
Yeah.
else they should be following it, but I'm going to be following your career, and I'll be the first one to say that's why she's a head coach of whatever college decides to hire you, and whoever hires you, man, they are getting a gem,
Appreciate it. Thank you
you
so
know.
much.
So thanks for being on, and have a
Of
great
course.
season.
Thank you.